do it.
All right.
Hey, so hi everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us in this session. As I said, for those who joined earlier, I'm Yael. I'm Yael Rabinovich, Agile lead and partner at Agile Sparks, and I will be leading this session, this webinar. Ronnie?
Hi, and I'm Ronnie Delev-Tamari, and I'm co-facilitating with Yael, also an Agile coach at Agile Sparks.
Okay, so we are ready to start. I'm going to share my screen. I hope all of you can see my screen. Please can hear me and see my screen. So we are here together to discuss the surprising truth about speed at scale. So to be very cautious with the truth, you know, what I wanted to talk about is how science and experience prove ways to reach speed that are so different from our intuition. So what our intuition leads us to, what help speeding up delivery and value delivery to our customers is very, very different from what experience and science shows. And this is what I want to discuss on this webinar. I will focus specifically about Agile at scale. So how do we create speed at scale? So starting with what are these principles that helps us reach scale, and then I will go through some examples from my experience in Agile transformation in real organizations in the last 10 years. And I will go through some examples that really made an impact in these organizations. So this is coming up. Just a few words about myself. I'm more than 20 years in the high-tech industry, started as a developer, and in the last 10 years, I'm doing, actually it's more than 10 years already, doing lean and agile transformation coaching and guidance for organizations. As you see in the right, I'm also a mom for 4 kids, and I'm doing and practicing Agile with them at home. If you want to hear more about that, I would love to discuss it with you. Very, very effective, especially in the Corona days, where they need to be more self-organizing. I'm also the Agile Israel program chair. I'm leading the content of our yearly conference that last was in July this year. We are working hard on the next conference. And I'm a SAFe program consultant. I'm a professional Scrum Master and all these things. Ronnie, can you please present yourself? Ronnie will help me facilitate this session. So, and she's a friend and a teammate in Agile Sparks. So please, Ronnie.
Sure. Hi, everybody.
One second.
Yeah, this is yours.
This is just a collection of the companies I was working with in the last 10 years. I thought maybe it will be relevant to mention. It's important to mention that all the companies that I worked with in these 10 years are either very big in nature, so I'm starting to work with a very big group of people, or they are a very successful startup that are starting to grow really, really fast. So it's always problems of scale that are we are supposed to work with. So this is like a background of the experience I'm bringing into this session. Ronnie, please.
Sure. And hi, everybody. Again, I'm Ronnie Delev-Tamari. I've been an Agile coach with Agile Sparks for about 9 years or so. Spent my whole career in the high-tech industry, over 20 years, half of them with Agile from its earliest days in the States. And here's some stuff that interests me and my kids, as well as the clients that I've been involved with in the most recent years. So it's great having you all on board here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Hey, and Agile Sparks, we are both Agile Sparkies, and Agile Sparks is the first company in Israel that is leading Agile transformations for the last 10 years, more than 10 years, 12 13 years, it's not here. We have offices in Israel, in the US, and in India. We worked with more than 400 companies worldwide since 2008. What's the now? 2008, it's 12 years. Okay, simple calculation. Okay, so as I said, what I wanted to talk about is how different is our intuition about speed than what science and experience shows. And our first intuition about going faster is just to speed up work. Okay, so just make people work faster. Okay, but actually we know that if we just work faster, it will result with poor quality and definitely burnout. Another thing about our intuition about speed is let's make sure everybody is busy 100% of the time. So if everybody are busy, we are surely moving faster, okay? And if everybody are really, really busy 100% of the time, we are probably very effective. But in fact, we understand that when everybody are busy all the time, 100% of the time, somehow nothing gets done. So we feel that there is progress, but there is nothing getting done. Another thing about speed is that we have in our intuition that speed contradicts stability. Okay, so if we will move fast, it means that our system will not be fast, will not be stable. Okay, and in the DevOps movement, we understand that it's totally the opposite. We see that as we are increasing the frequency and the number of deployments, okay, which is basically what measures speed, we are basically also increasing our stability, okay? So here again, where our intuition about speed contradicts what we see as experience from the field. What happens when we scaling up? When we are small, when it's a small startup, everybody are doing everything. We are working as a team. We are very few people, so we help each other, and it's very easy in terms of a process. But then when we grow and grow and grow, we tend to organize around disciplines, okay? And we create these silos. And all these silos together are supposed to work together to deliver valuable software, valuable product. But eventually, what it creates is a lot of handoffs and friction in the organization, which basically slow us down significantly. And in general, by the way, just a few days ago, there is a new Scrum guide published. Scrum is, for those of you who don't know, Scrum is an agile, it's the first agile framework ever. And most of the frameworks and most of the agile ways of working are inspired by Scrum, basically, okay? So if most of the companies I'm working with, if they're not doing explicitly Scrum, they're doing something similar or taking something of Scrum. And Scrum is basically talking about how a single team is working together and delivering value to their customer really, really fast, but can this work at scale, okay? And so this is generally how our intuition, our intuition is about speed, but let's see what the science and the studies and researches shows. So a study by Harvard Business Review shows that the companies that considered to be strategically fast companies are adopting practices that are considered practicing things that are slowing down people. So slowing down means people are doing other things than, working really, really fast, okay? So for example, what you see in the strategically fast companies, Harvard Business Review shows that senior leaders are investing time in alignment, okay? Alignment and commitment to success of the initiatives that are running. Another thing is that team members sometimes switch responsibilities. So they are investing in the cross-functionality, in full stack, in shared responsibilities on things. Teams review on how work is going. it's well known as retrospective. They stop and learn, and the groups captures and communicate lesson learned. So these companies stop and learn. So stop and learn is contradicting. They are stopping, they're discussing, so maybe it's slowing them down. But as you see here in this study and research, these are companies that in this research shows that in the bottom line results, they were having 40% higher sales, 52% higher operating profits in an over 3 years period. Okay, so here I'm starting to show you in terms of research how these practices that in our intuition are slowing us down are basically what making companies move faster. And a little bit more about science before I move to what really happens in the field from experience is about if we are looking at traffic. Traffic as a way to look at speed, okay? So we see that traffic actually starts slowing down when the road is reaching 50% utilization, much far from our intuition about utilization. Okay, so we think maybe when we have 100%, 80%, 90% utilization, the road will start slowing down, but it slows down much earlier. And once we reach these traffic jams, it takes a long time to reach speed again, to recover speed, okay? And okay, the delays are growing exponentially. So once we started delaying and slowing down traffic, it's the slowness is growing exponentially, okay? And how do we deal with it in traffic? We use traffic lights. We actually limit the number of cars that are going into the road. We limit the utilization. Since we understand that we need a certain level of utilization to keep the speed, we limit the utilization I guess to up to 50% in order to keep the speed. Okay, so we will see in a second how we are adopting these traffic lights, these stop and limiting the work in order to increase and keep the speed of the value delivery. So basically what we learned from science is that, you know, very similar to that story about the rabbit and the turtle, even though the rabbit is the faster animal, the turtle is the one that is reaching the goal faster. Okay, so it's not about just moving faster in order to reach the goal faster. So let's see how it works in experience. By the way, if you have questions, please write them in the Q&A section. And Ronnie will help me and she will look at it all the time. Ronnie, do you find any interesting question that I need to refer to so far?
Not yet, I'm just waiting. And
okay,
please everybody note the difference between the chat where, you know, you can have whatever commentary as well as introducing yourself like I suggested, and versus the Q&A, which is a separate button at the bottom of the Zoom. And that's where the questions should be.
Okay. So what we talked about so far is how on one hand we have our intuition about speed, and on the other hand we have the researches and study that shows us a bit different, that we need to slow down a bit, we need to put some stoplights. And now I want to move to the actual experience to show you some of the case studies from real implementation I worked with and what we did in order to speed up around these ideas of slowing down in order to speed up. Okay, so first of all, how do we measure speed? So one of the basic ways to measure speed is cycle time. Cycle time is just measuring the time from the moment we start working until it's done, until it's potentially delivered already to the customer. So from the moment we started until it's delivered, all this time is the time that we want to measure in order to know if we are fast enough. So if we are looking at the value delivery and the process it takes to deliver it, so this is just like a normal process of something that we are developing until it's released. Okay, so it's going through design, implementation, testing, and then release. But what you see in addition, that between these steps that we are working on progressing this value delivery, there are times that this value is waiting. Waiting means that nobody is working on it. Now, the special thing to notice here is that we are looking at waiting time of this value. It's not people that are waiting. You remember, people are very busy in the organization, sometimes even 100% busy. Okay, so it's not about the people that are waiting. Usually the thing that is waiting is the work, okay? And this is also something very different from what we are used to look at the organization where we are talking about speed. We are not looking, okay, it's not that we are not looking at it, but we are not focusing on how busy and whether people are waiting. We are looking at the waiting time of the value delivery, okay? So this is cycle time, but for cycle time, it doesn't matter whether we worked on it or not, it's the bottom line, okay? So at the bottom line, it took that time until we delivered, until we released this piece of value. When I'm referring to value, it could be a feature, it could be any new capability, it could be a product, okay? So anything that is relevant to your context, this is just like a typical process. Now I want to ask you, looking at cycle time this way, where should we focus in order to speed up? Should we focus on eliminating delays between what we do? So the delays is the time that the value is waiting for somebody to pick it up and continue working on it. Should we focus on this, on waiting, or should we focus on getting better on what we do? So if we develop something, if we are now coding, testing, maybe we should test better, maybe we should code better or code faster, okay? So where should we focus? So let's use a poll to hear what you say. I hope the poll will work. Okay, so I'm going to launch a polling. It will launch a question for you.
I see that some are also responding by chat. So you should hopefully all be seeing the poll opening up now.
Ronnie, do you see it? Do you see the window of the poll? Okay.
I do. Yeah, so we should be good. And I see that people have already started answering. So that's always exciting to see which answer is going to get the most votes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll give you another few seconds so you can answer the poll. 10 more seconds. Anyone that didn't answer the poll, so we have a majority for eliminating delays. But some getting better at what you do. Great. Okay, so we have 68% thinking that we need to focus on eliminating delays with what we do, and 32% think that we need to get better in what we do. Okay. Share result. Can you see the result? I'm sharing them.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, the majority were right. It's not that we are not going to improve the way we do things, okay? So it's not that we are not going to talk at all about how can we develop better or how can we test better. The fact is that, wait a minute. The fact is that if we will just focus on eliminating or maybe minimizing the red parts, the parts where the work is waiting, okay, it will give us the highest impact, okay, in terms of speed. Okay, so if we leave alone the way we do things, the way we do design, the way we do implementation, and we just focus on that, it will give us really, really high impact in increasing our speed. I don't know if you know this book. If you go out, you reach beautiful places of Dr. Seuss. And there is a chapter about the waiting place. And he says the waiting place is the worst place ever, okay? So this is what we need to have in mind, okay? That the waiting place is the worst place ever. And this is where we need to focus our effort, okay? So, and we need to make sure we understand it's not where people are waiting. In the book, it's about people that are waiting, okay? So his idea is the fact that there is nothing to wait, just go out. But in our context, I'm talking about the value that is waiting. So if we will minimize that, we will reach a lot of speed. And let's see how we do it. Okay, so how we do it. So first of all, in order to be able to identify the waiting times, we need to visualize the flow. We need to see it. We need to see the process. If we can't see it, we don't know when the work is waiting, how much of the work is waiting, how much time is it waiting, okay? So if it's waiting very little, maybe that's not the place to focus on, and etc. So we need to visualize the flow. So every implementation ever that I worked with, we start with that. We start with visualizing the work and the workflow. So what you see here, and it's blurry since it's taking from a real customer, it's a Kanban system that is what you see here are the stages. It's the backlog, define, UX design, architecture, ready for development, and etc. It's the different phases of development. And the notes that we see here are the pieces of value that this group is delivering, okay? So the first thing is to visualize it, the work and the workflow. And another thing, when you visualize the work and the workflow, again, it's a real screenshot from a real customer I'm working with. It's just blurring the details that we can't see. But we do see the stages. And there is something very important that we usually miss when we visualize the work. We need also to visualize the stages where the work is waiting. So what you see here is you see a stage, for example, wait a minute. Can you see my pointer?
Yeah.
Yay, great. So for example, you can see here pending, this is pending code review, okay? And this is code review done, and this is pending QA. Okay, so pending code review and pending QA is where the work is waiting. Okay, so every time somebody, for example, pending code review is when a developer finished coding, finished developing the item, and now it's waiting for somebody else to do code review for him, okay? The same thing here with pending QA. This is where the work is waiting for somebody to pull in order to start testing it, okay? So this is very important when we are visualizing the work, because if we don't visualize and we don't structure the workflow in a way that we can see the delays, we can see where the work is waiting, we will not be able to see where to focus on minimizing it. And now for that same team that I showed you, the Kanban board, you can see a report. This report in Jira, it's called control chart. In other tools, it's called differently. But basically what we see here is cycle time. Okay, so here on the y-axis is the time, and every dot represents an item that was closed, and the ace in the chart is the cycle time of that item. Okay, so the x-axis is date. This is where it was closed, and here is the cycle time. Okay, and now what you can see here is the details of one of the items, and it's very, very obvious where the problem is. Look at that. So it was in progress for 3 days, and then it was ready for code review for 2 days, and then it was pending QA 4 days, and it was just 5 minutes in QA. So see how amazing how clear it is that if we just focus on eliminating the ready for code review and the pending QA, the cycle time of that item will increase dramatically. Okay, so even not touching the way the way they develop. So Basically, what we identify looking at these delays is we identify handovers in the process, and these are the places where we are delaying feedback and we are creating rework. Okay? So, for example, with this example, it's very easy to see that basically the code review stage is very long, just because created rework for the developer, because the feedback, it took a long time until the feedback was given, and then they needed to do some fixes, review the code, go back, and all this is actually creating some new work in the system that we want to avoid. Okay. So what you see here, just to summarize, is a real report from a real customer showing cycle time. It's a very basic measurement that we use in Agile, okay? And how we visualize the work and how we structure our Kanbans in order to be able to identify these bottlenecks and start working on them. So this team is a team that we are working on minimizing these stages, and we will get really, really fast impact with them in increasing their cycle time.
Yeah, just a moment before you move on, relating to the cycle time, we have a question here from Nawaz Bat. How to optimize predictability when using cycle time measure in software development. I think not all work items user stories are equally sized and varies based on complexity, risk, effort. So maybe this is a good opportunity to, respond to this one.
Okay, so how do we use cycle time for increasing predictability?
Right. Yeah.
So it's right that not all items are at the same size, but in order to increase cycle time, not to increase, to minimize, to make cycle time better, actually one of the ways is working on the size of the items that are going into the system at the first place, okay? So what we are trying to do, and in order to also increase predictability, is to make sure that items that are going into the system, going into the process, are very small at size. Okay, so this will help predictability because, for example, what you see here with this team, the problem is that the standard deviation is very big. This team is not predictable, okay, because they have various cycle times. So if we try to understand how much can they deliver, it's very hard to predict. So the standard deviation shows that there are big differences between different items. So this team, for example, one of the things we will work with is to work with very, very small items to make sure their cycle time is their standard deviation, that the gap between the different items will be much smaller. Okay, so once you reach that point, this team will be much more predictable because you know how much time an item goes through their process and out to delivery. Okay, so this is one way, making sure the items are very small. Anything else, Ronnie, you think that?
No, this is good. Let's continue. And we're about halfway, just for everybody, FYI, we're about halfway through the webinar. So this is a great time, and we have a few more questions already lining up. So please feel free to bring those questions in the Q&A panel. And also another, small technicality in the chat. If you want to communicate just with the panelists, Yael and I, then you need to use the all panelists. And if you want to communicate also with the other attendees, then choose the option that includes panelists and attendees. And it seems perhaps some people didn't notice that, so just FYI. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, so for another case study, another company I worked with, what you see here, again, it's a report. I'm showing you real data from the customers. So what you see here in the report, it's called the CFD report, cumulative flow chart. A very quick explanation of what you see is on the y-axis is of course date, and on the x-axis is the dates, and on the y-axis is the number of issues. And the different colors indicates the stage this issue is at that moment. So just for example, on the 7th of June, We have around, I don't know, 5 items that were done, and we have 32 items that are in QA. Basically, verified means that they are testing. Okay, at that company, this is how they call this stage. There are few items that are in progress, and then there are a lot of items here that are in to do. So around 20 items in to do. So what you see very obviously from this report is that we are accumulating a lot of items in QA. Okay, this is how cumulative flow diagram looks like when things are piling up, waiting for QA for testing. Okay, so this is definitely where this bottleneck is at this company. Just a word about this company. It's they have around 7 teams. 7 development teams, just you know, for you to get an idea about the scale of this company. Okay, and so this is something we identified at the first stage of starting working with them. Another thing you can see in this report is also that things are not getting done. It's a report of 3 months, it's a quarter, and things are going into the process, but we are not reaching much done at this quarter. So what did we do with this information? So the first thing we do, and very typical to an agile transformation, the first thing we do is we organize around value. We make sure that our teams are cross-functional. Testing is part of the team. So before we started, testing was outside of the team. We had the development teams, we had QA teams, we had a handover. This was part of the reason things are piling up in QA. So the first thing we said, we will build a team that each team can deliver value as much as independently as possible. So this is very typical to first stage at an agile transformation. This is how this report looked at the next quarter following this change. You can see immediately the change, the improvement, okay? So you can see that the orange part of waiting and for QA is it's a bit thinner, okay? And things are getting done faster. So in a quarter, we completed much more items. You can see even in the numbers. So it's around, I don't know, around 20 items were delivered in the first quarter, and we have more than around 150 items delivered in the second quarter. So the impact was really immediate in terms of speed. But we were still not happy, okay? So as you see, the part of the testing is still a bit fat, I would call it, a bit thick. We wanted to be much, much faster, much thinner, to go really faster through the process. In addition, something that we don't see here in the report is that this group experienced, the teams were testing and they felt really good about their deliveries, but when things reached the customer, there were certain scenarios, system scenarios that were surprising for the team, that they were with very low quality. So quality was still not high enough. They were losing system view of the system. The system was too complex, and there were some very end-to-end wide scenarios that they were missing in the teams. So the next step we took is what we call build quality in. Okay, so we did a very a brave move, I think, for that company, which in this move, the teams adopted an agile development method called BDD, behavior-driven development. You can read about it. We can give you more information about it, but just in few words, it's a way to articulate or describe testing in a very simple manner, okay? In a way that the teams can automate it, okay? So you can describe the scenarios in a way that these scenarios will become the automated tests. So in essence, the development team took upon themselves to automate and to do the testing by themselves, okay? So what we did is we actually changed significantly the role of the QA in this group. The role of the QA in this group was no longer developers are developing and then handing off, even if it's in the same team, it's still a problem, handing off to QA, and then they need to handle all the testing and stuff like that. Now developers are also owning the test plans and the testing themselves and the regression. They need to do all of it. You develop it, you test it in this manner, okay? Now the QA now are the quality architect, the quality, they are doing the guidance, they are doing the test plan review, they are making sure the teams are testing the right things, the quality of the tests. They need to make sure the teams are testing what they need to test, but they are not doing the testing anymore, okay? And this one, we call, the whole idea of it, we call it quality built in, we call it shift left. It's basically taking the activities and the attention to quality much sooner in the process, okay? So we don't develop and then later test it. We start with testing. So what you see here with a lot of words, I didn't mean, you know, for you to read them all, but it's all different practices around pair programming, pair testing, design review, test review. It's all agile practices that helps the team to shift left the attention to quality, okay? To make quality part of the process and a lot much earlier in the process, and not wait for later testing. Okay, so this is basically what we did in this process. The big change is basically move from mindset of handing over work to work as a team for collective ownership. So if I'm just going back, so pair programming, pair testing, design reviews, look at these practices. They are all from the world of teamwork and collective ownership, rather than I'm developing, you are testing, I'm writing requirement, you are that. So we are actually blurring a little bit the boundaries, thanks. The boundaries between the roles of the team. Okay, so they are working together, getting collective ownership on getting things done, basically. Okay, so all these practices come from this world and this mindset, moving from handover to collective ownership and teamwork. Now, what you see here is actually on the right, you see my ponytail. But you see what I captured as retrospective, one of the retrospective when we started the journey of implementing BDD, and since most it's a mix of Hebrew and English, so I just translated it in on the left. This was after, you know, 1 sprint, 2 sprint running with this BDD, so the gains were immediate. Okay, so these are things that the teams were indicating. It's not me, it's a question for the team, what worked well, what didn't work. And they said, increased in ownership, reduced context switch, increased testing coverage, quality of test, improved cycle times, no handoffs, okay? And pains, there were a lot of pains. I'm not I'm not hiding it, okay? So there were a lot of pains, missing testing environment, duplications, no night runs, no standards, guidance on test priorities, blah, 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 all these problems. But then when you have a very good leadership, I remember this manager that was in the retrospective, we just, you know, okay, so we have all these problems, let's go, let's start solving them, okay? So the journey is, you get the gain, but it's not easy, and there are a lot of issues that you need to solve along the way. But also, if you look at the data, you can see immediately not that there are no pains, but the speed was immediate. So the next quarter, the quarter after it, the cumulative flow diagram looked like that. So it was very thin, there were no bottlenecks, and that's the time that the team started working on their issues with this process.
Right. Yeah, this is, I think, a good stopping point. Oh, okay. Actually, maybe the next slide will be. I'll ask a question, and I think your next slide it will be a good one, perhaps to answer.
Okay.
One of there are quite a few, several great questions. I'll start with this one. What is BDD? So maybe you can expand on that a little bit, or I can take that in typing it out. What do you say?
I did refer to it, but I think for BDD is an agile development practice that I will narrow it down just for the sake of this session. You can read about it. It's very easy. You just type it in Google and you can see it. The whole idea is that the automation process of the testing. It's a method to automate tests, basically, okay? But it starts with describing the test scenarios in simple sentences. And these sentences become the automation itself, okay? So just to narrow it down, it's an automation method of testing. Look it up. And it's very easy to implement it with people that are not familiar with code, so they can express the test in a very simple language that then becomes the automated test themselves.
And I would also add, yeah, that there are also organizations that find that using BDD, even if they don't get to the step of actually automating it, that they find it helpful even to just word it in that manner, in a way that really deals with the what the user is really expecting.
You're in mute, yeah, Ronnie?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, we had some background noises here.
Okay.
So some more questions. So do you get resistance from developers who say we are not testers? It is beneath us.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And there are some very special conditions that this type of shift left can work effectively. For example, making sure that the automation tests are in the language and very close to the technology of the developers. So when it's not that case, it's very hard to do such a move. And yes, so the answer is definitely yes. It's a hard move unless you keep this point that the technology needs to be very close to the developer's technology. So if they write in Java, so make sure that the testing framework is in Java or something similar like that. So it won't be too far from their world. That really helps.
Okay, another question we have here is how do you minimize work? Oh, hang on, we'll take another one first, actually. How could a PO help to eliminate any QA team issues with new knowledge? I'm not sure what is referred to by new knowledge. Maybe somebody can elaborate on that.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
I think it's about how can the PO help to eliminate testing related issues.
If I understood correctly the question, I think first of all is to understand the importance of it and make sure the team has time for testing what they need, and don't urge them to deliver fast and cut corners. This happens with product. Okay, they want their feature, but not sure they are understand the level of complexity of the testing itself. And make it be part of the definition phase, make it be part of what you define as requirements.
Okay, great.
I hope it answers yes.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to move on, Ronnie.
Yes, please, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I want to take another real quick case study with another amazing group I worked with in CA. They called the Blazemeter. We started working together, and this group, I use the Spotify team health check. I use it a lot with groups in order at the beginning or in the process to identify where to focus in the improvement process. And this group was actually a group that was first of all, they were scaling up. They were succeeding and they were scaling up, and they were delivering every 2 weeks to production a new release. Their problem was that it wasn't easy. They find that they can do it even faster, but every release had a very big price, mental price. Okay, it was very stressful. It was with a lot of patches after it, a lot of issues. Okay, so they wanted to understand, okay, we want to be fast, but we don't want to pay this price. Okay, we can't live with that for a long time. So what we identified, again, is that we have testing and production bottleneck. What does it mean? It reaches production and there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of rework, there's a lot of escaping defects coming up at production. So what we did two main steps, main changes. First of all, again, we organized around value, and this time in order to emphasize ownership and the self-organization for these teams, we went through a process that calls self-selection. Okay, self-selection is a very interesting process. Not many companies do it, but I wanted to mention it because it's a very good one. Where we describe which teams we need, what these teams own, what are these teams owning, and who is going to lead this team, and we let people choose which team they want to be in. Okay, it's as simple as that. But it's a very organized process. It's not as chaotic as it seems like. I can. There is a blog post I actually published about this process, and there is a lot of information in the internet about team self-selection, but it was very, very effective in organizing the teams, both in speed and both in their happiness. People were very happy with the team they were in because they had a chance they had a say in where they want to be. So this is one thing we did. The next thing we did after we created the teams with clear boundaries and self-organization, we expanded the definition of done of the teams, meaning when we want to do release, sanity tests are not being done by a different team. Production is not being tested by a different team or a person, okay? The teams own the items, the things that they are developed, the features that they are developing until they reach production, and they need to make sure in production that they are working and not creating any harm or regression and stuff like that. So it's basically a very simple change, which means when we are up in production, each person that owns a feature or a change that they were including in the system, they need to go to production and check it, and check how the monitoring works for it, if they're, and etc. So, and all the team was part of the sanity test of the system. So it no longer, we eliminated handoffs totally. So a team took things up to production. And amazingly, with very similarly to other changes I described, the impact was really immediate. Okay, so it's not without challenges and without problems. Of course, there were problems to solve, but the impact was really immediate. Okay, so the VP R&D talked about release tax in 20%. Basically, when I met him, he said, you know, I'm sleeping. Every time we have a release, I'm going to sleep, which is amazing, okay? There were very little escaping defects, and the stress was relieved. So once the stress is relieved, it's easier for that group to deliver fast, because before that, the speed had a very bad price on their health, I would say, okay? So this is another case study, a nice case study of this amazing group. What I want to say, just going back to the topic of this webinar, these practices looks like they are slowing the teams down, okay? Both also the previous case study I spoke about. So it's giving more work for the developers. Now they need to write tests as well. Now these guys need to test in deployment. Why is that their part of their job? Okay, so maybe they can just work on developing more things. It seems like it's slowing us down, but eventually, when you look at cycle time, when you look at the bottom line, which this is the most important thing, it's not how much they are developing, it's how much and how fast we are reaching our customers. So this is the point here that is related to speed in general and what we think about speed. So Randy Schaub, a very important VP engineering and chief architect at eBay, that he was speaking in our previous conference. One of the things he said about speed is that ideally 80% of project work should be within team boundaries, okay? So we know that we are building teams in a manner that they will be as independent as possible, and they can, you know, they are cross-functional, they can just run and deliver and not dependent on any other team. But even from what Randy is saying, it's 80% ideal, okay? So if we reach the ideal, we are in 80%. If we are working on it and we are still not in ideal stage, we are still in a stage where teams have dependencies on each other, okay? So even in an ideal stage, we have dependencies between the teams. So when we are talking about scale, the first way to deal with dependencies is, first of all, see them, okay? See them, and since we have dependencies, we need the teams to plan together. If they don't plan together, what happens is that a team is developing and is really quick and everything is great, but then they are stuck because the dependency they need from another team is in a lower priority for the team that they are dependent on, and they need to wait. And the work need to wait, by the way. You remember? They're moving forward for the next task, but the work need to wait. So when you have dependency, a very common practice we are doing with most of our teams, what you see here on the left is quarterly planning, that we are bringing all the teams together. What you see on the left here is what we call the program board, is where we are visualizing the teams and the sprints and the deliveries and the dependencies. And we are taking 2 days of these teams' time to plan a quarter, 12 weeks, in SAFe, we call it program increment or API, and then talk with each other and coordinate the dependencies between them in a way that they will be able to deliver together their deliveries, okay? And in order to do that, a very important condition is that they are aligned on priorities, okay? So if we have something that is very important for the organization, it's number one priority for all the teams, okay? And that helps them move really, really quickly. So back to the concept of the webinar, a lot of companies I'm working with say, what? 2 days, letting all the teams just sit together and plan, it's a long time that they could do development, okay? But actually, these 2 days the organization is taking is saving so much time for the organization and creating much more speed, since the teams are starting the quarter when they are aligned on priorities and they understand the dependencies, and all is scheduled in advance for them. Of course, you know, I'm realistic, things are changing, but then there is a baseline, there is something to talk about, okay? There is an understanding between the teams. What you see on the right, by the way, is a similar process I did with a company now in the Corona days, where everything became remote. It's very, very effective, even remotely. And you can also see the program board. One second, when it's electronic program board, okay? So on the left, you can see when it's a physical event, it's a fun event, people are meeting, people are talking, people are meeting the business in this event, and the outcome is a visual board with a plan, a joint plan with all these teams together. So when we are talking about scale, this is very important to align priorities and to visual dependencies and deliveries for all these teams. So as you can see here, it's a close-up of the program board when it's physical. You can see the strings representing dependencies, and this is how it looks like when it's an electronical board.
Yeah, Ellen, there's a question from the crowd. Which digital tool was used for that particular, I guess this one and perhaps the one a few slides back.
Which one?
With this one, and yeah, this one as well. Oh, it's the same one, I think.
It's the same one. Actually, it's a, you won't believe it. It's a Google Drawing. It's a free tool.
That's what I
Okay,
thought.
it's a free tool of Google. As you all know, the corona came very surprisingly suddenly, and we had to do this work. So we chose the most simple tool to implement this process with this company specifically. And we chose something very simple that we can just put notes and strings, okay? That was our basic requirement. And it has problems because it's very simple, you know, it's not integrated, it's not, you know, what we usually want from tools, but it did the work amazingly. It did the impact, or what we wanted from it, it's achieved the goal perfectly. But there are many other tools that are more sophisticated in terms of their integration to the tools and stuff like that. But this one is Google Drawings. Simple as that. You have it, all of you have it.
Yes. Okay, great. I think there were a few questions related to that. There are a few more questions, and yet we're, you know, approaching kind of the end of our webinar, although we can, I think, continue as long as people are interested. So.
Okay. So this is just how it looks like these 2 days, but I think we mentioned enough of it, and I guess again back to the webinar topic, taking people for 2 days on alignment and visualizing dependency and letting them talk and stop for a moment from delivering, but think and plan seems like a very wasteful practice, because they can, you know, sit and work, you know, we're wasting their time. But this is very, very important in achieving speed in the organization, and there are many case studies for this. Another case study I wanted to share with you is it's a group, Connected Home Division in Intel. Their lead, Ronen Ezra, presented this case study in our conference. This is why I allowed myself to put the name of the company here. And one of the problems I wanted to mention was that they were getting a lot of last minute changes. And during the execution, they were getting a lot of changes and requests, big requests from the business. And this created these surprises, created context switch and working on things that were not prepared enough, and et cetera, and et cetera. So how did we solve it? In many companies, Agile is considered something of mostly done by the technology teams, okay? And the business is out of the loop. And most of the technology teams suffer from these kind of surprises because the business is not in the process, okay? Not working Agile, okay? And when they need something, they need speed. So this is why they are creating these surprises. So what we need to do in order to prevent these surprises and create real speed that serves the business as best as possible is to align the business strategies and the technology strategies, and basically to align the business and the technology. There are many ways to do it. I want to mention something very, it looks, in terms of practice, is very simple, but it's very powerful. So we all know that Agile teams working in Cadence, they are working in sprints, okay? But what about the business? The business, 2 weeks for the business is very short, okay? So the business don't look at business goals in Cadence of 2 weeks, but 12 weeks or a quarter is something that is more relevant for the business. And this is taking us back to also the practice of big room planning, PI planning, quarterly planning I mentioned before. And the practice we did here is that we included the business in this cadence, okay? We made sure that the business goals and the thinking with the business will be in the cadence of this and will be aligned with the quarterly plan that the technology teams are doing, okay? So what you see here is basically the weeks, and you see that we are creating a cadence of 12 weeks. And when we are preparing for the quarterly planning, we are preparing with the business, okay? So this is the time that the business needs to refine or rethink their goals for the next quarter and how the technology teams can serve them and how the technology teams can align their priorities to serve the business as best as possible, okay? And from my experience, having this meeting and having this preparation in time, just in terms of timing, it's just a matter of timing and working together, reduces these surprises significantly and engaging the business in the process and making sure really that the deliveries of the technology teams will be as aligned and serving as possible for the business. So basically, you can see that there is a theme about alignment. Aligned and focused teams. So the teams are working on what the business value the most, okay? And we are creating short learning cycles also for the business, okay? So from my experience working with the business in 12 weeks cadence on goals is, some of the companies, it's not new for them, but some of the companies I worked with, this is a very short cadence for them, okay? So again and again and again and again, thinking about these goals and aligning them with the technology creates these short learning cycles also for the business, okay? So what I'm suggesting here and showing here as a case study is where we are including the business and creating what we are used to for the technology teams also together with the business. Other things we did here, and when we are talking about a very big solution, and in the case of Intel, it was a very big solution, very lines of business that had to coordinate in order to create this big solution, is that we are aligning the cadence of all these groups together. So a sprint starts at the same time for all these groups, and the quarterly planning is being done at the same cadence. And usually what you see here, at the last sprint, in a period of 2 weeks, we are creating a plan for the whole solution. Okay, so it's a very fast process in order to create a whole plan for a very, very big solution. Each one of these Agile release train represent around 120 people in a group. It's really quickly creating a plan for the whole solution. And if you are involving the business, this cadence allows you to create the goals, and then all these solutions together are aligned and their plans are aligned to the goals. What you see here, for example, in the case study of Intel, was that in these, forgive me that I'm going back, in these 2 weeks, in the last 2 weeks where we are planning the work for all these solutions, you can see here how we scheduled just in 2 weeks the planning of each one of these groups, this what we call Agile release trains together, so we can make sure these groups are aligned, synced, their plans can influence each other, and after 2 weeks we have a plan for the whole solution, okay? Just to summarize this case study, there were 2 big elements here. One is aligning the cadence for all the solution with the business, and also taking this very limited time period at the last sprint to plan the whole solution and to schedule it in a way that the whole solution can plan very, very quickly. Okay, so I think it's, how long do we have? What's the time?
We're a little past
wow.
7. Time flies when you're having fun. And we do have a few questions
Okay, so I can answer questions and we are summing up. So anyone that still have time, stay with us for the questions and answers, and then I'll sum up. So what questions do we have?
So we have a few questions. Some are a little bit shorter, some are a bit longer. Let's start with this one. So what, there's a, well, you know what, hang on. How often is adjusting priorities within sprints? I think this was in the context of something that you had mentioned earlier. How often is often? I think about regarding adjusting priorities within sprints. Hartmut, perhaps you can clarify that question.
So if I understood correctly the question, we are our goal is not to adjust priorities for the teams during a sprint. So we want to fix priorities when we start a sprint in order not to create context switch and let the team really work fast, because context switch and changes during the sprint slow teams down, okay? Of course, I'm not, I'm not, realistically it happens, okay? But if we do the right alignment in the right timing with the relevant people like the business, with the product and the relevant teams, we can achieve that and reduce the number of changes for the team.
Okay, I just got a response that the answer is already clear. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Let's see, what else have we got? There's a question about who does the performance testing for all of the system and when? If it's end to end, I guess if it's end to end performance testing.
Okay.
Does the planning of the performance need to go through all the DevOps teams? Okay.
Okay, for the case study, by the way, that I forgot to mention, a good question here, because I forgot to mention that when we did shift left and developers took ownership on test automation, basically what we could do, I forgot to mention it, is that we could focus the QA people both on one hand, they are guiding the teams on making sure that they are testing the right things and they have quality tests. But on the other hand, they are free now. They have some of their time is free for these end-to-end and performance tests. So basically what we did with that group is that we took out the QA from the teams, because the teams could now be more independent in testing their own stuff. But now QA could focus on these more complex tests, on these end-to-end system tests, okay? So this is what we did in that case study. So I hope it answers the question.
Wonderful. Okay, great.
Usually the teams themselves cannot take it upon themselves, because first of all, it requires skills and tools that the teams usually don't have, and it's too much of learning, and it's out of their scope usually. So again, usually depends, but at that case, this is what we did.
Okay, great. A couple more questions real quick. Plan synchronous, the teams and businesses coming up with solution for the whole quarter in a few days. Okay, so I guess referring to the PI planning, to the planning of the PI, I was wondering how detailed they got with solutions during those PI planning days. So how detailed were the actual solutions that they had?
So the details of the solution is also, it's not just about the planning days themselves, it's a lot about also the preparations, okay? So it's when to reach the point that we can plan synchronously in this manner, you can see in this slide, it's also about the preparations and how we are maturing things gradually, creating flow during the quarter itself, okay? So it helps a lot to reach the right details at that 2 days. But with good preparation, usually the teams reach the relevant solution. And also in terms of what they need to understand at that point, it's usually enough. It's usually good enough.
Great. Another really important question, what's the first or most important thing we need as an organization in order to move to Agile? How do we pick the right methodology?
That's a big question.
Very
Yeah,
important.
it's a big question. Maybe it's a topic for another webinar, I think. But
Yeah,
if I
that's
want,
actually a great idea for another
yeah,
webinar.
yeah,
And
we can do.
I can also take that question. So, you know, really, when you're thinking about taking your first steps in the agile direction, there's a lot of stuff to learn. It's very, very new. There isn't really one size fits all, but there are really important principles, values, and a lot of great practices out there. So it's really important to leverage what the Agile community has learned over the years. We have our own approach to this. We call it the Agile Sparks way. And the way that we do this is we basically start with understanding with you, with the leadership, what are the key pains and the main reasons why you want to do this transformation. And then we have what we call a management workshop, where we typically spend 2 days together with the upper management team in order to really hone and understand what is driving the transformation, what are the things that you initially need to learn, and then actually putting together the plan for the initial roadmap of the change, of the transformation. And that's going to be also an agile plan, right? Because things will change and you will learn as a group, and you'll figure out how your priorities change, but it's going to be the way to start out. And during that management workshop, that would be when you would be exposed to the different, you know, approaches that could be relevant for your organization. And that's where you would do the initial choosing. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. And if anybody is interested in more details about that, you can also go to our website. I'll put it in the answer to the question as well. We have more information there.
Okay, Gironi, can we sum up?
Okay, there's actually one more question here. I'll take it, I can type it up separately. Okay.
Okay, so thanks, Ronnie. So I want just to summarize with some takeaways that I suggest to take from this webinar. So don't believe your intuition on speed. Our intuition on speed is very powerful. I say it as someone that is working with companies for 10 years, and my intuition taking me back again and again, and I'm learning it again and again personally. Okay, so, and especially on scale, places where we feel that, you know, why are we bothering the teams with all these things? Let them just develop fast, okay? And our experience in science, as I showed you, teach us differently. So few points, okay? So look at the full value stream. It's not about one of the departments, one of the teams really moving fast, okay? We need to see the whole value stream. We need to understand how fast we actually release, how fast we actually bring things to the hand of our customers, and understand that focus on delays, understand where the work is stuck. And this is where the gold is, basically, okay? This is where we mine for gold, because if we improve that, the speed is increasing dramatically. And ownership end to end, anything that you can do to increase the ownership of the teams, okay? And the collaborative and collective ownership methods. So all the things that I mentioned about the shift left is basically around that. You know, how can we take more ownership and create more teamwork around the delivery? Use data to learn. I don't know if you noticed, everything that I showed you was backed up with actual reports. We looked at cycle times, we looked at CFDs, we looked at the Kanban boards, we looked at Spotify health checks. So it's also a way, you know, you do these type of health checks to help you understand where you are and where you need to focus. So use data to learn. And business priority alignment and cadence. This is very important, and we tend to miss it out in implementation. So we work with the technology teams. This is where the hard work is. We have a big 100 people organization, so we need to work with all of them. And we tend to forget the very important people, which are the business, and how to align them to the process and make sure that they are with us on the cadence, and we talk with them and we involve them in the process. Because if not, we are building all these things, and then we have all these surprises that are basically not real surprises. They knew about it. We were just not part of the picture. Okay, so that's basically it. Just to mention that there are many online courses now that we are in Corona days. It's fun because it's available for all of you all over the world because it's online, so you don't need to travel. Even though I recommend traveling here to Israel, it's fun when it's relevant. So just stay tuned with all these lovely online courses, and I want to thank you really for the time and the hour. I saw that some of you are staying late, and it's amazing. It's amazing that you stayed with me. We have 63 people still on the line. It's amazing. So
and
big
also
thank you.
I'll mention, and I'll type this in the chat once again, for those who are interested in joining our future webinars, you can find them on meetup.com, and I just put a link to where you can see what are the upcoming sessions. And actually, I'll be doing a session a bit down the road in February regarding user story mapping. And this is a really fantastic agile technique that I really absolutely love. And it's great for product managers, product owners who are really looking to take that large feature, or if you're using Jira, you know, an Epic, and figure out how to slice it, how to get that MVP out, how to get the MMFs, the minimally marketable features. If I'm talking, you know, gibberish to you, don't worry about it. It's, you know, stuff to learn. And there is actually a question regarding that, somewhat related. I'll type it up offline. But it's really been great having people here from all over the place. So thank you so much.
Wow.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Feel free to write us. We're going to stay on the line a little bit longer if you have any other final questions. Yeah, and I'll also post our emails so that you can contact us directly if you have any additional questions.
Okay, so we are staying online to write the answers. So.
Yeah. And for those who asked during the kind of offline, some of the stuff that I was answering, FYI, this session was recorded. You will get an email with a recording, so you will, you know, be able to watch that and get back to it. There's a question here: is there a Confluence training session planned? I don't think so, but it's a good topic.
No, not that I know of.
Okay, and here are our emails. Okay. And you guys are welcome to connect to us. Please connect to us on LinkedIn. It's always really, really fun to hear back from people who were involved. Writing down our full names so you can find us more easily. Okay, great. Okay.
Was there a question you wanted to
There was
answer?
one last question, yeah, that I was just, you know, typing like crazy trying to answer. We had a total of 25 questions answered, so that's exciting. So the last question here from an anonymous attendee, I hope it's somebody who's still around. We can take the question now. We run into problems when it comes to breaking down the stories into small enough pieces. We work with legacy code base, which predates Agile or even automated testing. Totally. We definitely have a lot of clients in that situation. It's very common. And the system is complex, low latency distributed system, which is very complex. We often find that if we break a piece into a 2-week sprint, so I think into a piece that will fit in the 2-week sprint, it's hardly a usable piece in production, okay? So it's not really providing real value. And do you have any pointers for how to break them into 2-week chunks in this kind of situation? Would you like to take that?
I think, wait a minute, which is quite complex.
Okay. Or I can.
One thing I want to say about this is, first of all, if it's not usable in production, still there is value of, in slicing to small pieces, even if the only value that you get is that you reach early testing and early integration, okay? So even if you don't reach production after 2 weeks, because again, there are, you know, sanity tests and it's still manual, and with all the context that you just provided, still to slice things small enough just to reach this early testing, early integration, early feedback on what you do is it's a big value, and it's enough, okay? When you reach that, yes, with time we can maybe create some valuable pieces into production after 2 weeks. What do you want to say about this, Ronnie?
Yeah, and I wanted to also add that, you know, this difficulty with legacy systems, we definitely see it a lot. You know, software has been around for a long time, and you know, practically everybody is dealing with it at some form or another. And one of the things we want to do in order to really work on improving this over time. So maybe today you're in this situation, and you know, that's the way it is. That's the tough reality. But what you want is to have kind of a roadmap for the future of how are you going to gradually refactor the code? How are you going to do some re-architecting that will really make it more possible and more, you know, easier to be agile with this code base? Okay, so you want to take whatever is that, you know, technical debt and really think about what are the first steps that you can take? And this is something you want to be agile about as well. You don't, it shouldn't be, you know, a humongous project that now you stop coding for 6 months and nothing gets out in production. We know nobody's going to approve that, right? I mean, things just need to still get out there, but you can do some capacity allocation and, you know, and agree on a certain percentage of the team's time or the organization's time that will be spent on this refactoring. And you want to have a backlog for that and figure out what, you know, priority wise, what's more important. And maybe when you're touching a certain area of the code, that would be a good time to make the changes. And you'll want to also create a safety net of automated tests. And we have a colleague, Yaki Koren, who is really, you know, doing amazing work, sitting with teams exactly in this situation who have this terrible code base that, you know, nobody really wants to deal with and doesn't have automated testing. And there are actually techniques for doing this. Okay, you don't need to invent the wheel. You can, there are great books out there about coding with legacy code and refactoring. And you can reach out to us if you're interested. Our colleague Yaki, again, he actually goes through and sits with the teams, and they together, they create the automated testing and really, you know, making that possible. So it's tough, but you need to start working on that and chipping away and making progress. Okay.
Okay, Ronnie, I think we can
that's it. That's all the
close
questions.
the session.
All right.
We are enjoying ourselves too much.
Yeah, I know.
And with the dots on the shirts, we didn't discuss it in advance. Okay, this is how teammates work, you know. Suddenly they look similar.
This is, you know, how people have, you know, their dogs a lot of times end up having some similarities to the owner. So this is just, we're just thinking about it and the polka dots.
Okay, so I think we can close and
thank you everybody.
Thank you again.
Take care.
So hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.